Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. We begin with breaking news tonight. A U.S. judge has ruled a Saskatoon woman who was arrested in Oregon after allegedly using false identification to cross the border with her 7-year-old son is set to be returned to Canada. The U.S. District Court in Oregon ordered that Dawn Marie Walker be returned to Canadian officials on Wednesday. Walker is being held in an Oregon jail on charges related to identity theft, including knowingly producing the passport of another person and having ID that was stolen or produced illegally. There have been growing calls for her to be returned to Canada, where she is also facing charges of parental abduction and public mischief. When she was taken into custody in Oregon, it was a surprising end to an extensive search for Walker, who is a lawyer and CEO of the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations. We hope to bring you more on this story tomorrow. To the East Coast, where a Mi'kmaq fisherman is facing charges for harvesting eels after the Department of Fisheries put a temporary ban on collecting them. But he recently argued before a Nova Scotia provincial court judge that he has a constitutional right to do so despite the ban. Angel Moore explains.
Corey Francis of the Acadia First Nation harvested eels like the ones in this file footage. They're also called elvers. But he allegedly did it after the Department of Fisheries issued a temporary halt to catching eels less than 10 centimeters long for conservation purposes in an order issued on April 27, 2020. Francis appeared at the Bridgewater, Nova Scotia Provincial Court earlier this week, where he claimed to have a right to fish for a moderate livelihood and food, social, and ceremonial purposes.
A lot of things that has occurred in Indigenous fisheries are and remain at issue, and I've always promoted a better way to deal with them, and I guess I can say that being in court is not the best way, and I'll leave it there for now.
Francis intends to use the Constitution to justify harvesting elvers despite the DFO ban, where Section 35 states Aboriginal and treaty rights are recognized and affirmed. Judge Paul Scoville will decide later if Francis can use his constitutional argument.
Set a trial date for an Aboriginal treaty rights trial in lieu of agreeing to a statement of facts to the offences alleged by the Crown regarding the harvesting of elvers.
Francis is representing himself, and the court is giving him more time to seek legal advice.
I think a smart person understands that when they need help. And I'm not a lawyer, I'm a layman. And for that reason alone, it would just be smart when you're dealing with constitutional issues to seek what help you can get.
Francis will be back in court on October 19th to set a new date for a trial. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Bridgewater, Nova Scotia.
Thanks, Angel. The federal government announced the reinstatement of Canada's chief nursing officer at a press conference Tuesday morning. The position will be filled by registered nurse Lee Chapman. She will provide advice to Health Canada on workforce planning, long-term, home and palliative care. The position was originally created in 1968, but eliminated by the Harper government in 2012. Canadian Indigenous Nurses Association CEO Marilee Naugazik welcomed the reinstatement.
This is an exciting time to be in Indigenous health across the country. This is an exciting time to become a nurse in this country. This is an exciting time to blend traditional approach with Western trained credentials. This is an exciting time to share our knowledge with our allies, our partners, and our nursing lead organizations.
New data shows opioid deaths rose in Ontario during the COVID-19 pandemic. More people have died from opioids in the second year of the pandemic compared to the first. About 8 people per day died from opioids from April 2021 to March 2022. That's up from 4 people per day in 2019. 2,790 opioid-related deaths were recorded between April 2021 and March 2022, whereas 2,727 people died from opioids between April 2020 and March 2021. A big jump from 2019 when 1,559 people died between April 2019 and March 2020. The Independent Investigation Unit of Manitoba is investigating an allegation of assault by an on-duty Manitoba First Nations police officer. According to the IIU, an incident on August 16th was reported to them by the Manitoba First Nations Police, formerly known as the Dakota Ojibwe Police Service. They operate on 8 First Nations across Manitoba. According to the investigative unit, a woman became aggressive while being placed in a cell at the Long Plain First Nations detachment. Force was used to secure her in the cell. She was cut on her head and taken to Portage General Hospital, treated and released back into custody. The investigation is ongoing, so the IIU will not comment further. An isolated Dene community in the Northwest Territories has been experiencing a sharp rise in crime. It's come since the introduction of an all-season road. A recent news release by the NWT-RCMP says the detachment of Wati has received a 25% climb in the number of calls for service this year, 747 calls in 2022, up from 596 calls the year previous. Police note there's been an increase in violent crime from 57 assaults to 149, and 18 reported sexual offenses as opposed to 6. The Allseason road has been open for 9 months. It was highly anticipated in the 530-person community to lower the cost of living, boost the economy, and make it easier to travel outside of winter months. Local government says they've noticed more alcohol and drugs coming in, but are taking steps to ensure residents are protected.
We noticed a large increase, especially when we had our first gathering too, again, once the COVID was lifted. And there are community concerns, and there have been community concerns prior to the opening of the Allseason road. Well, what we normally provide is municipal services, your water, sewer, garbage, and roads. But when there is large events happening with community members out of town, we do try to hire security, so therefore infrastructure and the public safety is intact.
A man who pled guilty in the deaths of 2 women in Whitehorse in 2017 has been sentenced to 18 years. 48-year-old Everett Chief pled guilty to manslaughter in the deaths of 53-year-old Sarah McIntosh and 51-year-old Wendy Carlick earlier this year. McIntosh was a member of the Kwallen-Dun First Nation in Carlick and belonged to the Kaska Nation in BC. The 2 women were found dead in McIntosh's home in Whitehorse on April 19, 2017. Chief was given 9 years each for both murders, as well as credit for time served, shaving more than 7 years off his sentence. The Prime Minister is expected in Nunavut on Thursday. That isn't unusual. It happens once or twice a year. What is unusual is the company he is bringing with him. Kent Driscoll has more.
Thanks. Now, let's talk about the location first. The location? Cambridge Bay, Nunavut, which is about 5,000 kilometers from the Russian border. The Prime Minister will be visiting the NORAD North Warning Site and the High Arctic Research Station. He'll be joined by the Secretary General of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg of Norway. Right now, the Canadian military's annual Northern Summer Exercise, Operation Nanook, is taking place. According to the PM's office, the two will be discussing climate change and what they describe as, quote, Russia's illegal and unjustifiable invasion of Ukraine. We'll have more on this story as it develops. Back to you in Winnipeg.
Thanks, Kent. An advocate for residential school survivors is calling for an inquiry after learning Catholic entities have been cleared from raising funds for survivors. Records obtained by the Canadian press date back to 2015 during Stephen Harper's time as Prime Minister. They show that Canada has forever discharged the church from its promise to raise $25 million. Survivor Garnet Adjikanab in northwestern Ontario says the funds would have gone toward community-based healing. He says an inquiry would hold the government and Catholic Church accountable.
It's time for a full-scale commission of inquiry to get at what's happened. We need to get to the bottom of this because, this was for survivors. This was to bring closure. This was to bring healing for survivors. But now, as we know, this is about lawyers talking to lawyers, and it's totally out of the hands of survivors.
The second annual International Indigenous HipHop Awards are set to go this weekend. That story and more coming up after the break. Welcome back. The International Indigenous HipHop Awards are set to go down in Winnipeg this weekend. This is the second annual show, but will be the first to be held in person. Last year, Winnipeg's Sly Skeeta was a nominee. This year, he's a nominee and hosting the show, and joins us now in studio. Sly, thanks so much for being with us. This is only the second year for the International Indigenous Hip Hop Awards. For those unfamiliar with the event, can you tell us a bit about it?
Yeah, definitely. Just want to say Anine and Tanzi, Buju, was Gucci to all my people out there tuning in right now. The International Indigenous Hip Hop Awards is happening this weekend live in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Turtle Island, and it's an opportunity for thriving Indigenous hip hop singers, rappers, and groups to come together to share their talents, and as well as be nominated for music, their abilities in different categories. And it's not just Indigenous to Canada. We're looking at the whole world. That's the international aspect of having, we can have Indigenous artists from the Pacific Islands. We have Indigenous artists from New Zealand, Australia, Latin America, of course, in the United States, and as well as across Canada. And it's a really the platform to really to get as much exposure for artists to be thriving, having a successful music career.
It's a two-day event. What can those taking part or tuning in expect?
Oh, it's you're going to expect something that our city, Winnipeg, has never seen before. This is going to be an amazing event. It's going to be an incredible weekend of talent. Of course, this is post-COVID, so with this being the second annual, our first year was, online only. So this is like that human nature aspect where we'll be able to, see our peers, other artists come together under one roof and connect. So Friday will be August 26th at Motto Workplace Studios. It'll be a trade show where we have Indigenous artists as well as up-and-coming artists and people who want to connect and network. And also there'll be workshops as well as performances. And I'll be hosting that as well. Saturday's the big day, the award show. We've got the red carpet gala. That's going to be at the EEC, the Exchange Event Center. And it's going to be really exciting. We've got, we're going to have nominees coming in to accept their award, and it's just going to be so much fun. I'm super hyped for that to be co-hosting. I am also a nominee this year for the Best Male Hip Hop Artist category for 2022. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that I get an opportunity to win an award as well.
And congrats on your nomination, a second year in a row.
Thank you.
Indigenous music in general is getting a lot of mainstream attention in recent years. Do you feel that's the case for Indigenous hip-hop?
Oh, totally. You know what I mean. I come from humble beginnings, starting as a battle MC. When you think of the movies, say like Eminem's 8 Mile, that's kind of how he started. So that's kind of a good example of the environment of the underground. You're thinking of being the dopest MC, kicking the craziest bars, to be really intricate and destroy your opponents and be that really competitive nature. But now things are just, for myself, knowing that I needed more exposure, the more mainstream, the music becomes becoming more popular, you know, that, you know, hip-hop music came out of poverty, you know, the inner cities of New York, and, you know, having it seen grow and flourish so much, now you're seeing, you know, hip-hop really having a commanding, you know, position on billboards, or being one of the biggest music forms around the world. So, you know, when it comes to Indigenous hip-hop, you know, this is that piece of the puzzle that, you know, we've been waiting for something, especially coming from Winnipeg, where, you know, we've kind of struggled. We're that small big city where it's like, you know, we're not Toronto, we're not Vancouver, we're not like the metropolis cities that are, you know, huge and kind of have that, you know, the big opportunities, where, you know, Winnipeg, we were kind of growing, you know, we were more of a country and rock and roll town, city, but we're growing, and I think the music is growing along with it. Hip-hop music, urban music, you know, we've got hip-hop, R&B, trap music, reggae, dancehall. We're kind of like this melting pot where, you know, you get influenced by so much, you know. I mean, you could go over to Osborne Village and you know, hear different kinds of, you know, hip-hop or folk music or electronic music, and we're all these different areas you get influenced by so much. But back to what you were saying for Indigenous hip-hop, you know, there's so many opportunities now, you know what I mean? There's people who want to book you for tours, you know, there's management, there's agents, there's managers, there's record labels, whereas when I was first starting out, that, you know, you didn't have those opportunities or the resources. So, you know, it was kind of maybe put you in a negative form to think, well, I can't do this, or I can't, you know, this is hard, this is tough, you know, I'll just give up and go do something else. I'll go be a welder or get a trade, you know. So, but for artists like myself, where I'm actually getting paid gigs, I get paid to do festivals across North America, or I have toured, I've performed in Los Angeles, New York. I did a 3-city tour in Australia back in 2018, connected with the Indigenous people there, to say that, you know, I'm one of the in the forefront to bring Winnipeg hip-hop. I'm going to take the long route, and take that journey, and prove that to the First Nations youth and the next generation that you can do something with your life and your ambition to use music as a career.
Good stuff, Sly. Sounds like a fun weekend ahead.
Yeah.
Congrats on the nomination. Good luck with the show and the co-hosting. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much. Have a good one. Much love.
Time for another quick break. Still to come, a new online market for Indigenous artists to sell their creations.
So I decided to create Shawish. And the special thing about Shawish is that it's absolutely free for vendors.
Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Ken White Cloud grows his own corn, Sioux Valley, Dakota Nation, and shared this with us from this year's crop. Some absolutely amazing colors there. Great looking corn, Ken. You can send your photos to share at aptn.ca for the chance to be featured as our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, 25 with showers in Halifax and Fredericton. 16 in Kuujjuaq, 17 for Nain. 27 in Montreal, showers, and 21 in Val-d'Or. 23 in Sault Ste. Marie, cloudy and 23 for North Bay. Rain and 21 in Thunder Bay and Sioux Lookout. 19 and sunny for God's Lake and Norway House. 22 under the sun in Winnipeg and Dauphin. Sunny and 25 in Regina, 27 in Saskatoon, 26 in Meadow Lake and La Ronge. In northern Alberta, 29 for High Level, 27 in Fort McMurray, 28 in Edmonton, showers, and 21 in Lethbridge. 25 and sunny in Vancouver, sunny and 24 for Victoria, 28 in Prince George, 32 under the sun in Smithers, 20 in Old Crow, 21 in Whitehorse, sunny and 24 for Yellowknife, 27 in Norman Wells, 9 in Sax Harbor, cloudy and 16 for Paulatuck, 16 in Arviette, 10 in Chesterfield, 4 in Resolute, 2 in Joe Haven. First Nations Youth is helping Indigenous artists get their work out there virtually. It's an online market called Shawish. The hope is to increase exposure and create sales. APTN's Annette Francis met one of the artists and the market's creator in Toronto recently.
If Jessica McKenzie isn't at her daytime job, she can be found here, beading. She learned it just before the pandemic hit.
My sister and I, we actually learned from an elder. So once we learned from her, it was very difficult, not super relaxing. However, we pushed through it. And then we started doing earrings and pins, and we just found that it was truly a great way to show off where we're from.
The Cree artist has a lot of products to prepare to be sold on a new virtual Indigenous marketplace called Shawish. Amanda Bernard launched it earlier this week.
I have a lot of Indigenous friends who are beaders, and I work at a foundation where I work with other Indigenous youth. So I saw all these Indigenous products that were being created, but not really a platform that displayed them as much as I would like them to be. So I decided to create Shawish. And the special thing about Shawish is that it's absolutely free for vendors.
She sees it as an opportunity to promote Indigenous arts from across the country.
Right now, I even have a lot of non-Native people come up to me and ask me, where can I buy beading, or where can I buy this? Or I have non-Native people coming up to me and telling me stories about them purchasing beading and then finding out, or purchasing orange shirts from a non-Native person that was promoting that it was Native, but it wasn't. So this kind of solves that issue as well, because with Shawish, we actually verify all our sellers, so you know you're definitely helping a First Nation person directly.
Bernard has spent months preparing for the launch and is excited with the response. Already in just 4 days, 10 vendors have registered, including Mackenzie.
I think Shawish was a fantastic idea, and it really allows myself as an Indigenous vendor to show off some of my creations. And of course, there's other platforms where maybe Indigenous artists don't get that type of visibility. However, Shawish truly allows myself and other Indigenous creators to really be proud of the work that we have created.
Anyone interested in registering or checking out the site can go to shawishmarket.com. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Toronto.
Some good-looking stuff there. And that's all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Tuesday. For news anytime or more on anything you've seen here, you can visit our website, aptnnews.ca. Stick around for an encore episode of Face to Face. Our guest tonight is 60 Scoop survivor and award-winning journalist Betty Ann Adam. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for being with us. Have a great night.